There, Dragonfire here. I wanted to hop on and do another video. I guess this would be my first official video of the month of April, and happy 1 year anniversary to all my Dragonfire fans. 1 year since it was actually on April 1st, a year ago, that I uploaded my first video. I know I said in a previous video that it had been over a year, but I was mistaken. This is now officially the little over 1 year anniversary. Um, yeah, the 1 year anniversary was April 1st. Um, so if you guys saw, maybe you were on and you saw, I did do a live stream for my 1 year anniversary yesterday, even though it was a few days late. I did it on the 4th. Today's the 5th when I'm recording this now. Um, and yeah, I had to take that down. It got taken down for me. I should have been more proactive and take it down sooner because I knew it was going to get a copyright strike. But it was just a live stream of me jamming out to some videos, me interacting with some people on the live chat, jamming out to videos, uh, or not videos, but music, jamming out to music. There were no videos involved, but just playing music and jamming out. And we had a lot of fun. I had my player on shuffle, so I had no idea what it was going to play, and I played some. Uh, I think the last song that we did, I think may have been a Prince song, or either last or second to last song. I did a song by Joe Walsh. Did a song by the Beatles. That was probably the one that got me the copyright strike right there. Mess with the Beatles, but yeah, I just had it on random and played some stuff, some Blue Oyster Cult and yeah, Electric Light Orchestra and stuff. So um, okay. So for this video, I wanted to talk about Fear of the Walking Dead. This is the first time I've ever done a TV show on this here. But one day I was in a thrift store and I just happened to come across this. It looks like this was donated. This was previously, I think, a library copy. And they got donated to the thrift store. And then I got it at the thrift store for a really cheap price. And normally my rule of thumb is don't ever um, uh, jump into anything midway through. I like to watch from the beginning. But I had seen, by that point, I think I was almost finished, not quite finished, but almost finished with The Walking Dead, which is something that I would watch on Netflix. I don't have Netflix, so I go over to my sister's house. We watch The Walking Dead together. Um, and we'd almost finished the entire series by that point. So I was like, okay, Fear the Walking Dead looks interesting, and I could probably just jump right in, already knowing the Walking Dead universe, and why not? It's cheap, and I'll just go ahead and do it, and I'll um, just for something enjoyable, something I can watch on my own at my house on my DVD player, whatever. And I did enjoy it, but it was jarring, breaking my rule of hopping into something that I did not know. Everything that had led up to that, especially with such serialized storytelling. Uh, you know, uh, every episode follows each other, and it's all a big story and so forth, and you have to really know what's going on. So it was kind of jarring jumping in at season 6. I then went to see if I could find some more used bookstores or whatever that also have DVD sections and stuff like that, and other thrift stores and whatnot. And I ended up finding, if I can remember correctly here, I think, yeah, I ended up finding seasons 2, 3, and 4. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna find seasons 2, 3, and 4. So then I started with season 2. Um, And okay, it's like, okay, yeah, that's making some more sense. It's getting some more of the back story filled in because I want to, complete the story, So I'm like, okay, okay, season two. And then I watched season three, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty good. All right, that makes sense. It's good. Um, then I jumped into season four, and I don't think I had finished season four yet when I found seasons one and five. I happened to be out one day, and I come across seasons one and five, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, those are the two I need. So yeah, fill in the blank there. So I get, I decided to start over, go back to the beginning, start season one, get it, okay, then, and now I don't want to just skip to where I left off, so I'm going to rewatch season two again, right? So I'm like, okay, season two. I tell you, I experienced this also with the original series because at one point when I had been watching the original series, um, I was like, oh man, uh, I'm out of episodes. I was out of episodes up to that point, and I decided to go back and start rewatching episodes. I just didn't find anything else that really appealed to me at the time, and that time I was staying at my sister's house. So I was using her Netflix account and stuff, and I went back and kind of rewatched until I got caught up. And by the time I got it caught up through season seven or eight, whatever I was at, then some new stuff started to come out on Netflix at that point. But man, there are a lot of Walking Dead and Fear of Walking Dead episodes where once you've already seen them, you will try to watch them for a second time. You're like, oh my, yeah, no, this is hard to get through at some points. There's a certain way of storytelling. There's some movies that I've seen many times and I never get tired of them, and then there's others I'm like, oh my goodness, I've seen this before, and I don't. It's hard to get through. But I wanted that context now. Okay, now I finally started from season one. Okay, let's get that context and see if I notice things. I see things that I didn't notice the first time. When I go through it the second time around, it's like I can better understand it. Okay, then I get into season three, and once again, it feels like, oh man, it's not been long enough. It's been a very short period of time, and I feel like I've already seen this episode. And it's just some things, and like sometimes you want to kind of skip over the boring parts and get to the good stuff because I do think that they drag out their storytelling. That's something Walking Dead, all their shows I think are famous for. Drag out that storytelling, drag out that storytelling. But always introducing new characters, and some of them don't connect with the audience as well as other. So then I finally get back to season four again. Finally get to the point where I left off, so now I'm seeing brand new episodes, that I haven't seen before. I'm like, okay, this is good, I'm like taking in the new stuff. And of course then I get to season five. And it's like, okay, this is finally now the chance to like fill in the last of that blank of everything that led up to season six, right? To fill in those final blanks. How did we get to the point where we were in season six, right? And then uh, I rewatched season six after I was done with season five. Um, And yeah, it was just like, oh, okay, now it sort of makes more sense. But there was still a lot of episodes that were dragged to get through. Um, the second time around, especially, and just but then after I did kind of take a break for a while. But at one point, I was in Barnes and Noble, And I did see that that point, I think it was right before season 8 came out. At that point, though, they did have season 7 available, and it was the first time I had seen it anywhere. So I went ahead and picked up season 7. So I jumped into season 7 from where I had left off in season 6. I probably should have rewatched the final episode of season 6 just so that it could be more fresh in my mind where we had left off. And I knew that season 8 was the final season. And I had actually seen one episode of season 8. I was traveling, I was in a hotel room. I watched one episode of season 8 on TV there. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of spoiling it, but I don't care. It's on, and I couldn't go to sleep right now at that point that night, so whatever. But anyway, I come in, and so I done this thing, and I was like, oh yeah, season 7 advances the story and whatnot. And I think by the time I'm watching season 7, I've now finally seen the conclusion of the original series, the original Walking Dead. Right, so I know how that they wrapped everything up in that. Pretty disappointed in the final episode of that, if I say so. Um, and then right around the time that it came out, then I went ahead and got season 8 at Walmart. Probably this one at Barnes and Noble because it was Barnes and Noble. Probably was my most expensive. Was the most expensive one that I bought. Because the rest of them all got used. This was probably the second most expensive one I got because I got it at Walmart right after it came out, but I still think it was cheaper than the Barnes and Noble one. It kind of the hunting them all down was part of the fun of the process too, to be honest. Um, and um, I was definitely more satisfied with the ending of this show than I was with the ending of the original series. Um, it did feel like a more satisfactory conclusion to all these characters and all the storylines that have been building up over the course of the series. Um, I do want to rewatch it because there is one character, um, the character of Wendell, that I'm not sure they ever bring a proper conclusion to. Sorry, hopefully that's not a spoiler if you haven't seen them. I want to go back and see if they give a definitive answer of what happened to that character, what kind of how he completed his story. Um, but yeah, sorry for that little bit of a spoiler there, but um, I didn't see if they did wrap up that storyline, that conclusion, then I must have missed it somehow. But yeah, I had a fun time watching this series, and I guess I just spent all this time talking about my experience of just watching it rather than the show itself. Um, but it was a fun TV show. It was worth the time. Like I said, if you ever want to go back and rewatch the episodes, they're a lot tougher the second time around in many cases. And a lot of times, yeah, it has a lot of the same drawbacks as the original series. Sometimes they do time jumps for what feels like no reason or a reason, but not a good one. Sometimes you can guess what the reason why they did the time jump is, but it doesn't feel like a good reason. Um, the characters sometimes, and what frustrates me about the time jump too is sometimes they'll take characters and they'll have the characters be like in a completely different spot um, after the time jump from before the time jump, and I realize that that kind of makes sense and that people do sometimes change over time, and that the time jump does in some sense justify why the character is acting so differently than the way they acted last time you left them off, but it's really, really jarring really jarring for you as the viewer, um, to do that. You know, in the wrestling business, we have good guys and bad guys. Good guys are called faces. Bad guys are called heels. And like you know, I apply that same logic when I watch shows and movies and stuff. It's like, oh, all of a sudden this character is now a heel, or this character that was a heel is now a face, and it just seems like you don't get the justification for why it turned. And usually there's some sort of backstory or explanation that comes up later on where they sort of explain why the character turned, um, and is acting a completely different way now than they were. Kind of acting antagonistically or protagonistically to the way that they were acting previously. But man, is it jarring. Even when they explain it, or there's enough time passed that it's maybe believable that this character's perspective on life has changed because they just jumped forward like 7 years or something like that. It's still very jarring. Um, and and hurts your connection with the audience, and hurts like your audience actually caring about the outcomes of these stories, or caring about the process of getting to the outcome, and the whole like the audience being involved in the story being told, being passive participants at least, and but the only reason to keep your audience will keep watching if they actually care about what's going on. And sometimes it's hard to care when the story's not being told good. That's the whole point, is you tell a good story and people will care about the story being told. But when you make certain mistakes, it makes it a lot harder to care. So yeah, um, I know I didn't talk much about the show itself, but basically, one thing that this does different than the original Walking Dead, for Fear of the Walking Dead, is it um, it starts out with a single family. Um, I mean, you could argue that to some extent that the original show did that, but um, really, the original show just introduces characters, and then you kind of find out that they're related to each other later on and stuff like that. And yeah, I guess you could say the main central focus of the family is that uh, Rick Grimes and his son and his wife. Um, that's the main family that you start out with in that show, but I just feel like it's far less focused, and you don't know that right off the bat. You figure it out as you go along. And also, you have Rick Grimes waking up after the apocalypse. You have the people camped out on the side of the road who are camped there after the apocalypse has already begun. And you don't see the beginnings of the apocalypse. You see the aftermath and the early time after it, but you don't see the beginnings of it. In this show, you get to witness from a particular family's point of view how the outbreak happens in the city of Los Angeles specifically. You have that. This is the main family that you get with here. And oh man, season one was a long time ago for me, right? But you have Nick and Alicia and Madison and Travis. Um, those four are the main family. Nick and Alicia are Madison's children, her biological children. Travis is Madison's uh, uh, live-in boyfriend. I don't think that they're officially married um, when the show first begins. Later on, she does at least at one point refer to Travis as her husband, but I think she calls him that later on after a bunch of things have happened by kind of default. They don't officially ever get married in the show that I can remember, and I don't think they're married already when it begins. He's the living boyfriend, but for shorthand, she calls him her husband. Um, at least once or twice, as particularly when talking to other people. And I'm trying to word things in such a way as not to give away too many spoilers here, but um, yeah, I think they're a live-in couple. They both work together, which is how they met. They both work at a school that Alicia attends, and that Nick used to attend before he dropped out. And Nick is over the age of 18 now, I think, and he's like a drug addict. Um, these are all things that are important to the beginning of the show. Um, Travis has an ex-wife, and he has a son um, that he has with his ex-wife. So obviously, he still cares about his son, and his son is going to care about his mother. Um, so when the zombie apocalypse breaks out, they try to save the other side of the family as well. Or Travis's son and ex-wife. They meet a family who I believe owns a barber shop, which is Daniel and his wife and his daughter. I forget the wife's name. The daughter's name is Ophelia. Um, so they kind of end up forming an alliance with uh, with Daniel and his family, and that's probably the core group that you have there. Um, that really start this thing out, and then they meet other people along the way. I don't know if I think it's still later in yeah, it's in season one where they meet Victor Strand, and that just kind of turns out to be a convenience. It starts out with a friendship between Victor and Nick, um, and that's how kind of Victor gets involved with the family. Um, yeah, Travis and his son Chris, I think is his name, have to hide out in Daniel's barbershop with Daniel and his family. I think it's a barbershop. Um, and yeah, it's a barbershop. And from there, they go on dealing with the zombie apocalypse. Um, Obviously there's a lot of changes over time. They bring in it mainly focuses on those main characters and other people that they happen to come across and who get involved in the story as they come across them in the remaining seasons of the show. Um, and um, that in season four is when they start bringing crossover characters, so you recognize Morgan from the original Walking Dead series, and Morgan, who's there from the pilot episode but never becomes part of the main group. Really, he's always kind of a bit of an outsider to the main group that we see on The Walking Dead, and he goes and he comes to fear The Walking Dead um, in season four, and um, just continuing. And I realize now that by even showing these covers and back covers that you might be able to put together some spoilers based on that. But I mean, I've given a few here that Morgan joins. That's one of the big crossover characters. Okay, for those who don't want spoilers, you might want to close your eyes for the next few seconds here. Season 6. Boom, boom, boom. There's a little tease there. Season 7. Boom, boom, boom. A little bit of tease going on. And finally, season 8, front and back cover there. So, yeah, little teasers, little tweezers. We're like, oh, what's going on? One of the big things about The Walking Dead is The characters can die at any time. Characters can come into the show at any time. A brand new character can be um, introduced. That character might only be there for one episode, or that character could be there for several episodes. Could be there for the rest of the season. Could be there for several seasons, but could die at any time. Characters can die in the very final episode of the Walking Dead show. So, but what I will say is that one thing that I feel like many shows, Walking Dead, included in other shows that I've seen lately in movie franchises and stuff, is the fake out death that really annoys me. Uh, sometimes, I mean, to do it every once in a while, and it all depends on the context and the thing. Is like it can work sometimes, and it can be okay sometimes. But like the more convincingly and the more emphatically you kind of tell your audience that a character is dead, and then you decide to bring that character back and say, nope, that character really didn't die, you are eroding your trust. It's one thing to just have it kind of be a kind of sort of little flimsy thing like, oh, we think that person died, and then later on it's revealed, nope, didn't really die, they're back. They're not really dead. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I can kind of get with that. But to have situations where really should have died, like the character really should have died, really uh, should have been dead, should have been whatever, and then just say, nope, actually that character is still alive. And nope, actually that character is still alive. Nope, actually that character is still alive. Do it over and over and over again with multiple different characters or the same character more than once or whatever it might be. After a while, it's like I just man, and I guess this is one of those things where like you can't trust this show anymore. You have to really actually see a person die. They can't cut away from a death for dramatic effect and then you just assume that, oh, well, that was a totally inescapable situation. Of course that person died. Or, oh, that was a totally unhealable wound. Of course that person died. Or whatever the case may be. So if you don't see a person as a zombie in the show, or if you don't see them get their head cut off or something like that, it's like you can't assume that anyone is dead, no matter how clear it seems that they were dead. Even sometimes you saw them get shot, or you saw them get stabbed, or you saw them whatever, and then it's revealed later on, oh, they actually lived through that. It kind of erodes your trust with the audience. Of like it doesn't feel as weighty, it doesn't feel as good, it doesn't feel like there are as real consequences to people's actions when just over and over and over again you're like, no, actually that person lived. No, that person lived. This person was actually still alive. Yeah, it shows up again. Turns out that person wasn't dead. He wasn't dead. She wasn't dead. Yeah, they're still alive. You just um, and people complained about that some with the original series. This one I feel does it more. It's something that I've noticed in other TV shows and movie franchises that really gets onto my nerves. Um, and yeah, um, um, so anyway, I don't want to give too much away about what happens in the show details, but I'll say, it's the typical Walking Dead type of stuff. Sometimes you form a community, and then you always get bad people who don't want you to be happy. That's the theme of Walking Dead, right? Bad guy comes along, sees you're too happy, and it's like, no, I don't want you to be happy. I don't want to join you. I just want to kill you and take your stuff away from you, or I want to control you, or I want to this, that, because evil, bad people doing evil, bad things in the apocalypse, right? The people are far more dangerous than the zombies themselves. The zombies can just be a tool to be used by the evil people, right? And that's pretty much how The Walking Dead goes. Of course, the zombies are dangerous in the wrong situations, but people are far more dangerous, and they're always going to disrupt whatever you got going on. Okay. Um, I think I pretty exhaustively talked about what I wanted to say about the Fear Walking Dead series. It is a fun show. I'd give it a try if you like the original series, or if you're just into zombie movies and stuff and you want to follow it for an entire series. You want to see some good serialized storytelling. Are there parts of it that are annoying? Yes. Do they sometimes take too long to get to the point? Yes. Which is why I gotta cut this video off at a half an hour. Alright. Thanks everybody. God bless. Dragonfire out.